Okay, hi. Welcome to day one, track two of the Pure International Conference, as Europe and Africa. My name is Laura Simon. I'm a librarian at Washington University School of Medicine in St. Louis, Missouri. There's a live Q&A button on the right-hand side of your screen where you can enter questions for the presenters, and if there's time at the end, we'll get to those. So I would like to introduce you to this session's speakers, Zohreh, Zahedi, and Ellen Fest. Zohreh Zahedi is Coordinator of Research Information Management at the Royal Netherlands Academy of Arts and Sciences, and Ellen Fest is Coordinator of Research Information and Impact Services at Wageningen University and Research Library. They will be presenting what is the publication date of an article. Zohreh and Ellen, whenever you're ready, go ahead and start. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for the introduction. I'm Zohreh, and I'm going to present this topic with my co-author, Ellen Fest. So the first part, I will present it. So as it's mentioned, it's about the publication date of an article and then the variations and the challenges that it causes. The outline of the presentation is as follows. I will introduce the project and also the result of the survey that we have run. And after that, Ellen will continue with the results of the data analysis and the conclusions. I hope you like the presentation, and we are looking forward to your comments and questions. Actually, why we explore this topic, this is because of the existence of print and online versions of publications that are available, and the variation that it causes in terms of the terminology, the publication dates, the variations in their formats, in the status, that also differs across different publishers, and the inconsistency that this brings when it comes to registering publications in CRIS system like Pure, and also the challenges that it causes indirectly in the exchange of metadata across various systems. That's why we decided to do a data analysis and a survey. And with the survey, we distributed across the Pure user group via the mailing list that we have in the Netherlands. And we had 9 open questions. We received 15 responses, 1 duplicate response. What were the questions that we did? We wanted to explore the approaches of all Dutch universities in terms of the publication days, the challenges they have, and how do they deal with this in terms of dealing with the publication days of print versions, online versions, EPUB ahead of print, and the different terminologies that are there. So there were 9 open questions. So I'm going to present the results of some of them. One of the questions was about whether they regularly update the status and dates of the journal articles in their CRIS. So 12 respondents mentioned yes, that they regularly update this in their Pure system, and 2 with no. And the second question was about which date or a status combination they use for reporting purposes. So 8 of the universities mentioned that the published version, and 5 of them, they report both published and EPUB ahead of print, and 1 no answer. And then we questioned them if they encounter any problems when the date status of publication changes, and how do they deal with that in their CRIS system. So half of the participants mentioned that they do have problems and half not. And their problems were mainly centered about the duplications, the different status changes, and also when it comes to using external sources such as Scopus. They had this problem of overwritten of their data with Scopus in part. And the next question was about how do they deal with this problem when the dates of articles, which was first online and then published, the status changed. How do they deal with these changes? We got diverse answers. 8 of the participants mentioned that they register EPUB ahead of print, and then when the published version is available, then they change it. They change the status, publication status. And about 2 respondents mentioned that they consider EPUB ahead of print as a published version, and one of them use a kind of field in Pure, and then they in the issue number they use the issue number field in Pure and add the print date there. One respondent mentioned that they accept and register both EPUB ahead of print and published version separately. And also others mentioned that they register publication when all the metadata is complete. And one of the university mentioned that it's a very complicated issue for them, and they are looking for automated way of using external sources like Scopus and other sources. But then for them, these available updates that are available via Scopus doesn't work. It doesn't enrich their record. So they are looking for other automated way that works best. And one of the question was about, we asked them what would be the best approach in registering dates of publication in their quiz, and also particularly to be in line with PLANES, with open access policy and other policies that are in progress now at the national level. We also got diverse answers to this question. 2 respondents mentioned that they prefer full publication date, a complete and also accurate publication history. 3 respondents mentioned that so first online date is very important, and it's also very important to treat preprint version as a kind of separate entities, and also link all these versions together to the published versions. 2 respondents mentioned that both the official published date and the first online date are very important, but still they mentioned some problems regarding available update from Scopus. And 2 other respondents mentioned that only the year is important, and the other mentioned that it's better to remove the EPUB ahead of print publication status from Pure. And 5 respondents didn't have any idea regarding this. As you have seen, we received diverse answers from the participants, and then this also emphasized the fact that these differences in the publication days, status, and also the different terminology that are using by different publishers, and also the different publication date that you see in different databases, Scopus, Web of Science, and all other sources are very challenging. And then we are looking forward to a kind of consistent way for this. With this, I will end my part, and then I will ask Ellen to continue and to share with you the result of the data analysis that she has done.
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you, Zohreh. Yeah, well, besides the survey we run, we also want to get an idea on how big this variation is, and it's especially interesting to see if there's a variation in publication year, because that's the basis where you build your reports on. So that's why I used the data from Wageningen University and Research to do some analysis on. And can you give me the next slide, Zohreh? Okay, thank you. So the first analysis I did was with data in Pure. So how many publications have a different first publication year and a second publication year? So whether the EPUB ahead of print is published a year before the final printed version or the version of record. In the table on the horizontal axis, you will see the first publication year reported in Pure, and on the vertical axis, you see the second publication year reported in Pure. And what we see in general is that about 10 to 12% of the publications have a different online year than a printed year. So about 10 to 12% is probably published by the end of the year online and then finally printed a year later. So can you give me the next slide? And with the following example, I want to explain where the differences are. And I took a publication about CRISPR-Cas with co-authors from Wageningen University and Research and the TU Delft to show this variation. And you can see that this publication was published by the end of 2019 online, and the final date was in 2020. And this is both reported on the publisher website. Next slide. If we then look at the research portal of TU Delft, I hope you can read it. You see there that 2019 is reported as publication year here. Next slide. And the portal of Wageningen University and Research shows February 2020 as publication year. Next slide. This is in line with Scopus, which also shows 2020 as a publication year. But then, next slide, if we go to Europe PubMed Central, we see again 2019 appearing as publication year. So this is confusing. Oh, can you go back one? Sorry. This is confusing. In my opinion, there's no wrong or right, but these differences might lead to variations in reports. And hopefully, at least I hope citation databases are able to count the right number of citations, despite they have a different publication year in reference lists. And next slide, please. So to dig a bit deeper into these data, I did an analysis on Crossref data. I used a publication set with refereed articles from Wageningen University and Research from a period 2017 to 2020. And we checked the dates that are available in Crossref, and we looked how many publications have the same published year as print year in Crossref. And you can see that plotted in the graph. And again, we see a similar pattern as in Pure. About 12% of the publications show a different published year than a print year. In exceptional cases, it can take up to 3 years before an article is finally printed. Next slide, please. And the final analysis I did was on Web of Science and Scopus data and whether this was in line with our Pure data. For this analysis, I used 2 sets of publications. And one set consisted of academic publications from Wageningen University staff. And this set was compared to Scopus data. And the second set consisted of refereed articles from Wageningen University and Research. And this latter set was compared to Web of Science. And in the graph, the number of publications per publication years indicated by the bars. In green, you see the Scopus results, and in purple, you see the Web of Science results. The year above the graph indicates the latest publication year reported in our Pure system. If we look at 2006, we can conclude that most publications have the same date as in Scopus. There are some strange exceptions. Publications from 2006 appear in Scopus with dates in 2013, 2015, and 2017. These seem to be related to books that are published as an online book many years after the printed version, and then also indexed by Scopus. Furthermore, we see that a small number of publications have a 1-year difference with Pure. For the Web of Science set, all publications have the same year as in Pure. This is the result of the workflow at that time. Publications were imported from Web of Science, and at that time Web of Science only indexed final published versions. In 2014, we see a similar pattern as in 2006. At that time, we still use Web of Science to import publication data into our CRIS system. However, in 2015, we switched to Pure and started to import data from Scopus. In 2019, the last graph you see, we still see a slight difference between Pure and the two databases. Although it looks like a small difference, these deviations can raise questions. If, for instance, you create a report in SciVal and the numbers of scholarly output per publication year are different than tables you create with Pure, then you will get some difficult questions from our managers or researchers. Next slide. And with this, I want to conclude. We must be aware that there are differences in publication year between the various databases and systems with scholarly publications. And if our CRIS data is used for reporting on national level, I think we need to make conventions together with all the other universities on how we deal with publication years and online versus published dates. And at last, we would like to ask publishers, isn't it time to stop focusing on the print date as the version of record? Published online might be a better standard as a version of record date. We don't know how many journals are still printed, but this will definitely decrease further in the near future. So with this, I want to end. Zohreh, can you put up the last slide? Oh, it's already gone. I want to thank everybody for the attention, and there's, I think, room for some questions.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Wonderful job. So a question that came in through the Q&A is, shouldn't we just agree that the date of publication is when it is available for reading online or on paper that it's published? When it can be read, it can be cited or have impact.
Zohreh, do you want to answer? Or?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
What was the question? Can you repeat it? Sorry, I was reading the questions in the chat.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Okay, and we actually we can't see you, Zohreh. So if you would pull your
yes. Sorry.
Yeah, that's a little better. Okay. So the question is, shouldn't we agree that the date of publication is when it's available for reading, either online or on paper, it's published. When it can be read is when it can be cited, and then having an impact.
Yeah, that's a very good question and very good point that we also wanted to raise. And I think that would be the best approach. Then we don't have any confusion regarding what is the exact publication date of an article. And I think that helps a lot. And as Ellen also displayed and also mentioned emphasized in her presentation, I think that would be the best thing. Ellen, do you want to add something to that?
No, I fully agree. And yes, I was looking for some data on how many journals are still printed. It feels a bit strange that we are keeping this whole print schedule with journals, and while they are not printed anymore. So, but I couldn't find any data on that. But I think many journals are not printed anymore. So why do we stick to this traditional system with volumes and issue instead of just putting it online and having it into the scholarly community? Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yes.
So next question, what about articles where the publisher puts a corrected proof online before publishing the version of a record? There's a wide variation between different publishers in how they report this.
I think, yeah, that is getting more difficult. I'm also not sure whether if if they can take the paper down if it's still the corrected proof. I thought that I once read somewhere that it's still possible to take it down then. So if that is the case, if it's not officially published and in the system, then we should not use that one. But yeah, if it has a DOI and it cannot be taken down anymore without any tracking information, then we should use that one, that date. Yeah, especially the year is important, I think, but the date, of course, as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so in your questionnaire, did you expect the results you got, or were there any surprises? What was the biggest surprise for you?
No surprises, but I mean, it depends how you. It wasn't always clear what do they mean. Sometimes you were thinking, okay, maybe we should have like multiple choice, but then sometimes you see that this is the challenge that everybody is dealing with, and then nobody knows what would be the best thing. And then they were looking for all the participants were looking for a kind of, I think, somehow a standard way to report that. But the opinions varied a lot, I think.
Yeah. It made me realize that we need to make more agreements on how we deal with the same data, because otherwise you will see these strange differences I showed for TU Delft and Wageningen. And I'm not saying who is wrong or right, but I think we should do it all on the same way if we want to report as a national community.
Yes, for the same data sets without any variations in the results and in interpretation. That helps a lot if we both make this awareness and also to look for a kind of agreement with, at the national level maybe.
So another question. Experiencing issues recording in Pure the final published print date, which precedes the first online publication date. Some publishers require to apply an embargo from the date the version of record appears online, not when the accepted manuscript is available online.
So what is the question then?
Oh, yes.
I think it has to do with open access, I think.
Yeah, is there a preferred, or what is kind of the recommendation for this?
I think that makes it complicated if publishers have different rules on from which version on you have to take the half year, 2 years embargo time to publish an author accepted manuscript or something. Then it should be clear what this final date is. Yeah, so then you should make this difference between the versions for usage by the scholars. But yeah, maybe if we say the first published version is the version, then also these rules should apply to that version, I think.
Mm-hmm. So can you repeat your key recommendations and tell us who or what you think should drive us kind of getting to a solution?
Well, I think we should first be aware of these variations. So if you start making reports from your own system, but also combining with data from different systems, you should be aware that you will have different numbers. And I think for us as a pure Dutch pure user community, we have to discuss how to continue with this, and maybe we can agree on something. Yeah, and I really hope that we can really shift to a digital publishing era with online as the standard version.
Yes, I think that helps a lot, and then in solving all the problems, and also to be in line with the recent policies that are going to happen.
Wonderful. Well, we've reached the end of this session. What is the publication date of an article? Thank you, Ellen and Zohreh, for your presentation. If you had a question or you have one later, you can ask the speakers directly in live chat or in the connection hub. Next is the Expo Gallery. It's a great opportunity to learn about Pure and third-party partners, as well as other Elsevier solutions. I will welcome you back for track 2 and the next session, which is tracking research data sets with data monitor and Pure. Lessons learned from our early adopters. So thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.